Good evening. We want to start off by thanking in this service for their wonderful talent and for sharing that with us. A bunch of musicians who come together to spread the word of God is nothing better than that. So we thank Phil and his friends for coming together at the last minute. We also want to take a time to thank Sanctus Ranch. This is such a beautiful place. When I first came out here to tour the facility last year for one of the retreats that Dan so mentioned, it just felt so special, and there was just such a grace about it, and we were just so grateful to be here. And my wife and I have been out here many times, just so grateful and thankful to be here. So we are so grateful to be here at your presence at Sanctus Ranch. We're looking forward to some more music here in a few minutes, but they've asked me to share a few words with you guys. So for those who don't know, I go by many names. For those pre-college, they called me Danny. For those post-college, it was Dan. When I came out of Sanctus Ranch, I became Dan the Lesser because, of course, Dan the Greater was already here. So the teens know me as Mr. Dan. So whatever you'd like to call me, I would usually answer to most. I'd like to start off with something that helps me every morning when I'm getting to start my day. It just seems that sometimes when we get started, our days get up to a bad start. We've forgotten to do something very key. And I found this poem that always reminds me of that, so I'd like to share it with you today. It's called The Difference. I got up early one morning and rushed right into the day. I had so much to accomplish that I didn't have time to pray. Problems just tumbled about me, and heavier came each task. Why doesn't God help me, I wondered. He answered, you didn't ask. I wanted to see joy and beauty, but the day toiled on gray and bleak. I wondered why God didn't show me. He said, but you didn't seek. I tried to come into God's presence. I used all my keys at the lock. God gently and lovingly chided, my child, you didn't knock. I woke up early this morning and paused before entering the day. I had so much I had to accomplish that I had to take time to pray. So with that, we'd like to get started. When they asked me to do this talk, I kind of was wondering what was I going to talk about. Many times when I'm doing my talking, I work a lot with middle school youth, so I kind of have to have a frame of reference. What am I going to talk to them about? How am I going to relate to them? And so as I always do, I go and talk to my son, who was the closest to a middle school youth I have currently living with us. And he said, Dad, just focus on some of the things that are going on right now. So kind of want to start off a little bit by just reviewing the last 6 months, the wild roller coaster ride it's been, up and down, left and right, zig and zagging. For me, it'd be a normal day. For most people, it's called chaos. You know, you have people who are working from home. You have people who aren't working at all. You have people who are struggling to find a way. You have people, like Dan mentioned earlier, in isolation, looking for that little bit of comfort, that little bit of contact, for someone to reach out to them and for someone to help them make their day and make sense of things. For us, a lot of times, that was our older brother who we lost last year after battling, he had a long battle with cancer, and every time I find myself struggling, I always remember him and the words of confidence that he would bring to us. So we find the people who help us make sense of things. But some of the things I like to focus on too is, while most of us have the time and we have a tendency to go down the rabbit hole chasing all the negative things, to go to the grocery store, we talk about what's not there. We go to an event that if we want to go to the movies, and most of them are closed, we can't go to the movies. We want to go to the beaches, they're closing beaches because there's too many people there. We focus on things we cannot do, that we forget to focus on the positives right now. The haze around LA is gone. Animals are coming back to nature parks where they've been missing for so long. The turtles are returning back to the beaches because we're not there. God, in his own infinite wisdom, said, I'm going to use this chance to show you guys, by cooperating, how things can change and how things can improve by making small adjustments in your lives. Y'all aren't about. Y'all are all at home wondering what you're going to do, and look at what I can do. Look at the power that I can do, the way that I can fix things if you just give me a chance. So when we look at that and we think about how God can do what he's doing to this land, we wonder, what can he do in our own lives? How can God help us by just opening up to him and letting him do his work? We start by being selfless, not selfish, selfless. And today, it's very hard for that to happen sometimes. It's a me-first society. Me first, me first, me first. How am I going to be satisfied? Instant gratification. We have to put all that aside and become selfless. starts with doing things we don't want to do. Yes, masks are inconvenient. Masks are annoying, but when we're in a large group of people, and if it's going to provide a little bit of care and help, then we can do our part. And if we don't want to do that, that's okay too, because we can choose to stay home. We can choose to stay out of the general public, okay? So there's so many things that we want to push back on. There's so many things we want to fight about, but we can do our part. We can start by thinking of those who we're trying to help. You know, I have an 80-year-old mom and 81-year-old dad who both who struggle, and they're having a hard time with this. They want to know how come we can't come over and visit them, how come they can't just go and do all the things they normally do. So we need to think about those who are struggling and those who are wanting to get back to life as we know it. I guess one of the phrases I regret the most out of right now is the new normal. I do not like that phrase at all. I do not like the new normal. I enjoy the old normal, the normal that we want to get back to. I know that we have temporary things we're trying to do, but I look forward to getting back to normal is what I want to do. I want to see the teens come together, and I want to see the teens join. I want to see adults and families get ready to celebrate. When we had parties in March and birthday parties in April, and you had the drive-by birthday party, you gave a whole new term to the word drive-by, that became fun. That was neat. That was neat to see people drive by and come together, finding unique ways to celebrate each other. We always have to find unique ways of celebrating each other. We got to think outside the box. And this is the type of thinking we're talking about that God wants us to do. He wants us to come up with new solutions to today's problems. We got to think outside. We got to get creative. We need to take advantage of the things that are now being made available to us. Since 2000, I've been telling where I work that we needed to have an online presence. And it was a far-out vision for them at the time. Now all of a sudden it's a requirement. They're asking for all churches to live stream masses, to live stream adoration if you can, to be present for the parishioners who are not able to come in, are still living in a little bit of fear that they're going to become ill by coming in. So we have that available to us that wasn't there before. Daily masses are available to us now. Adoration, you can spend time with Jesus from the comfort of your own home if you can't make it to see him in person. There's many ways that we are available to us now to take advantage of it. And are we really doing that? Are we taking the time to do that? I know that since this began, that my activities have increased at the church because I'm the one who's having to be behind the camera typically. I'm the one live streaming. I'm the one making sure the events happen. And I know that in the beginning, I would see the numbers. It'd be 7, 8 people, 9 people. And you think, is it really worth it? And then you would get the call from one of the people who would be crying in tears saying, thank you for letting me have Jesus in my life, even if it's through a TV screen, even if it's through a computer screen. So we do things to make a difference for the one person. That's where we start. Make a difference for the one. There's great opportunities to also learn more about faith. There's a prayer group, the Fulton Sheen Prayer Group, that meets every Saturday that we can participate in via Zoom, that teaches more about the catechism. Bishop Fulton Sheen, who was on his way to become a saint, was way before his time. In the 50s, he had all these ideas, and people thought he was crazy then. He was very flamboyant. He was one of the first ones on TV to come in with his cape, and he would just flare on his cape. And you're like, what the heck? But then you listen to his words, and you hear him, and it just it puts things into perspective that you never imagined could. We listened to 50 classes, 50 sessions that he recorded about our faith and how you can learn more about it. 50 sessions. And each one, you think, oh, he possibly can't get any better. And each one builds upon it. It builds upon it, builds upon it, until you start having this understanding of the faith the way God wanted it to be. It's an incredible experience. You have Bishop Robert Warren, who also is a modern-day evangelist. He simplifies things, and he helps us understand what God's word is, maybe ways that we think about. You have Lena Rulli, the Catholic guy. My wife loves him. She absolutely listens to every one of his podcasts. This is a regular guy who has worked his entire life in the church, serving the church, who just has different perspectives, and most people listen to him, and some people get very upset with his point of views, and he says, okay, don't listen to me. I mean, you have lots of choices. The options are there. We need to find it. Instead of doing the normal, let's think outside the box. Let's look for new solutions to our current situation. Adopt simpler ways. A friend of my son's when all this happened, she was graduating from college, missed all of her ceremonies, she missed everything. She wasn't even in the same city when they decided everything was canceled. But instead of sitting there and having a pity party, she's got together and said, hey, why don't we start pen pals? Who was interested? She had over 50 people interested. She paired them all up, and they started pen pal, writing each other, sending letters through the mail, snail mail. It actually still works. And then she would, with anticipation, she posts every day the new letters she gets with excitement and joy. She's so excited to receive them and to touch base with different people that she normally wouldn't communicate with. Personal, on the paper, written down, words that they can go back and reflect on. Things that we've gotten away from that make for a better time. Calling loved ones. How many of us reach out and call our grandparents? Talk to them. Let them know what we're thinking about. Let's use text for a different way. Texting people when you think of them. Someone pops up in your head. Sarah pops up in your head. Send Sarah a text. Hey, Sarah, I just want to let you know, thinking about you today, you're loved. You don't know what that does to people on the other end of the line. We've done this before. I've done this several times. When someone keeps coming on my head, I'll send them a text, and then a couple days later I get a call saying, I was in such a bad place when you sent me that text, and it just turned things around for me. Just to know that someone's there thinking about me made such a difference in my life. Be a difference maker for people. Use technology to make a difference. It's there for us. Let's start using it. Pray for each other, but most of all, pray with each other. If someone sends you a message, hey, will you pray with me? Don't just send them prayer hands. That's wonderful. I love God. They have it. Don't just say prayer hands. Send a prayer with it. You don't have to be specific. They don't have to give you the details. If someone's in need, someone's struggling, pray with them. Father, come down and help them. Walk with them during their struggle right now. Be present to them. Let them know they are loved. Use technology to make a difference in people's lives. Don't focus on what we can't do. Focus on what we can do. We were one of the groups, like I said earlier, that we were going to come for this retreat. We were 4 weeks away. We thought we had made it. We had put in the final deposit. We were excited, and then the word comes, you're canceled. You know what it's like having to tell 40 teens that the work that they prepared for 3 months is no longer? And 23 of them were seniors, so they don't have a chance to come back and do it again. For us adults, it's not canceled, it's postponed. For these 23 teens, they're done. And they were so disappointed. And having to be the one to tell them that things that they've worked for, that they've been looking forward to, is no longer going to happen. And then you have to help them understand and make the transition that it doesn't matter where you are to spread God's word. You need to choose to be a light for somebody in dark times. And many times, it's not an easy choice to make because that means that you're putting yourself out there. And that's not a place some of us like to be. We don't like to be out there. We like to be in the background. It's safer in the background. But to make a difference, we have to put ourselves out there and make ourselves available to those who are in need. Our domestic church, which is a phrase that not everybody knows about, that's our inner circle. That's the church that we're related to. That's your family at home. That's your group of friends. Everywhere you go, there's a domestic church. Be the leader of your domestic church. Be the one who people look for and want to know that they have support from. The church can only do so much. They provide us a guidance. They give us what we want to do. But sometimes the domestic church is what needs to sustain through. We're the ones that need to show the bigger church that we need more love, more attention. We're the ones who dictate the direction we want our faith to go. But there's a lot of responsibility with that, being part of the domestic church. Men, we are called to be the spiritual leaders of our family. Tough role to fill. The spiritual leader of the family. Studies show that in families where the men with the wives lead the children to church, almost 50% of them, the kids will continue on once they leave their home. If the man's not involved, it drops to 2%. 2%. Men, pick up your cross, lead your children to church. Women, we need you to continue to be the spiritual heart of the family. You're the ones that get the men to church. You're the ones that show the family that it's important that when we go on vacation, we need to find a church to go to church because we're not on vacation from God, my mom's favorite line. We go out of town, we think, oh, we're safe. No church this weekend. And she'd be in the phone book. Phone book is for those young people out there. It's a book that had all the addresses and numbers. We didn't have Google back then. She'd be in the phone book looking for the closest church. She'd call, what are your services? We're like, Mom, no. And she's like, you don't take a vacation from God, son. So we learn from an early age. We need the moms to continue to be that. They need to be the ones to tell us when it's time that we start any road trip. Let's start with a rosary. And you're like, nowadays we tune out. But let's not tune out. Let's tune in. Let's listen to the moms. They've been the spiritual heart for so long. Teens, especially those getting ready to go into college, become the spiritual warriors we need you to be. I don't know if you realize this, but 85% of seniors who graduate and go to college within their first year of college will no longer be practicing their faith. 85% we're losing. We need you to do your part too. You need to study. You need to learn. You need to pick up your cross. You need to carry it. You need to be a light for others to follow. You need to be Jesus for people to follow. You may be the only Bible somebody's going to read. What part of the Bible do you want them to get from you? We need to help each other. We need to be present for each other. Parents, one of the things that when I'm working with middle school youth, the biggest thing they talk about is how they don't feel that they're understood. Okay, do I really need to know what Animal Crossing is and the significance of it? Or do I just need to understand that it brings my boys joy? The latter. It brings them joy. Son, so what's the significance of having 40 sharks in your pocket? Because I can do it, Dad. And then I go and turn it in, and I get about 500,000, which would be equivalent of dollars. And I'm like, okay. All right, so that's fun to do. And then watching them fight that which one's better. When the older son's mad because the younger son is better at him, and he's had a short amount of time, brings them joy. They sit there and they sit at the counter and they play Animal Crossings for hours, talking to each other. And as a dad, that's such a beautiful thing to see. Siblings relating with each other. Watch the shows that they want to watch. Slobby's World. Give our youngest son, okay, you got control of Netflix. What are we going to watch? Hey, Dad, let's watch Slobby's World. Okay. Put on this show about guys he just finds the rare finds in shoes, shirts, and he knows everything about it. You see this kid, if we saw him on the street as adults, we'd be thinking, what is wrong with this guy? This guy has made his own niche in the world. He has people following him. He's making a difference. He thinks to people, oh, you know what? This guy likes this shirt. I'm going to take it for him. And he made a difference. And I would never have tuned in. Give their things a chance. Teens, the same thing applies to you guys. Put your screens down. Turn them off. Visit with your parents. It works both ways. They need to know. They need to feel loved and respected too. And I know that this is a hard one to understand, but understand sometimes decisions they make are really in your best interest. Okay? They're not doing it just to be mean. Sometimes we do. But we're not always doing it just to be mean. We're doing it because it's in your best interest. Sometimes we do know a little bit better. Sometimes. Not always. Sometimes. Surround yourself with goodness. The gentleman playing the keyboard, Phil, over here, when he comes back on stage. One of the greatest men you could ever meet. RCIA, he's a convert to our family, to the church family. And after that, he didn't just sit back. Every year, he works with new candidates coming in. He helps them to learn more about God. He helps them understand God. He's present for them. He makes a difference. The 70s at this ranch open up their homes so others can come learn more about God. They're making a difference with Jen in the kitchen cooking and Dan running around telling everybody the best way of doing things. Forget what you know. This is how it should be done. And typically it's right. Sometimes it's a little, you're like, I'm going to do it this way anyway, Dan, but typically it's right. And then to see his kids serving the food. It's incredible. And do they want to do it? No, not always. But they still do it as a family. They're making a difference in the community. Be a difference maker. So in closing, I'm going to share a story with you guys real quick. It's called the Starfish Story. Love this story for many reasons, but more importantly, just for the message, the simple message it shares. One day a man was walking along the beach when he noticed a boy hurriedly picking up and gently throwing things into the ocean. Approaching the boy, he asked, "Young man, what are you doing?" The boy replied, "Throwing starfish back into the ocean. The surface up and the tide is going out. If I don't throw them back, they'll die." The man laughed to himself and said, "Don't you realize there are miles and miles of beach and hundreds of starfish? You can't make any difference." After listening politely, the boy bent down, picked up another starfish, threw it into the surf, then smiling at the man, he said, "I made a difference to that one." Every day, let's make a difference to somebody.